Good evening, everyone. So my name is Yvan, President of the UTT SPE Student Chapter, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this evening's session. So this is actually our last session for the entire semester. So I do hope you all enjoy it. And on behalf of my team and I'd like to say many thanks to all those who've attended our sessions thus far and have supported the chapter tremendously. So this evening, we are pleased to have with us Yvan, Varune, Maharaj, Lacki, and Mark Siler, all from BHP, who will be speaking to us on various topics in professional development. So without further ado, I now invite Mr. Yvan to kick things off.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Could you all hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Okay, so just an introduction. My name is Yvan. I'm a drone engineer with BHP. I started there as an intern in 2015. I'm a final year in school at UE. And then upon graduation, I did a bachelor's in mechanical engineering at UE. Upon graduation, I joined BHP as a graduate drone engineer. I was in that position for a couple of years, working in Trinidad and sometime in South Texas. And then for the past 2.5, 3 years, I've been working predominantly Deepwater, Trinidad, and some work in the Deepwater Gulf of Mexico. So I think I had a pretty challenging topic here, given where we are in the world right now, with regards to COVID-19 and the outlook of the energy industry. So I'll try my best I'll be honest with you all as to the big positives of the industry. And also, just to let you all know, I mean, there are, of course, challenges with regards to jobs and stuff right now. I think that's affecting everyone. But I think my message here is going to be, hey, the industry is a great place to be. And in Trinidad and Tobago, there's very little careers that will afford you the same opportunities as an oil and gas career. So Evangeline, you could go, Mark, you go to the next slide. So my career in the oil and gas industry has been very positive, since I joined out of school. There's so much that you learn so quickly. It forces you to mature quite a bit in a short space of time. And hey, it's a great field I think you all chose to study. And I'm hoping that, in the future, it's definitely going to get better than it is this year with regard to jobs. And I'll just show you all some information in the upcoming slides on some of the outlooks for oil and gas in the upcoming years, which some of it is positive. I think most of it is positive, but there are, of course, some negatives in there as well. So since I started, I mean, this industry is very challenging, but it's very rewarding. Every day you try to be better than you would the day before with regards to performance. And you're always pushing to be as good as you can, because the reality is the industry is very competitive when you are trying to get capital to do projects, etc. So you need to be as good as you can to compete on a global market. And the most important thing is that it's very rewarding when you get to see the projects that you worked on being delivered. I mean, some of these projects are massive, and you just play like a small part in it, but it's a very important part. For BHP right now, we got a big project going on with Ruby. That's very important to the country. It's going to give us like 16,000 barrels of oil a day. I think some gas as well. I know that project's been going on for quite some time now. And when things like that, you finally get first oil, I mean, the feeling will be immense for all those people that were involved in the project. Oil and gas industry, every day is unique, especially in the field that we work in, which is drilling. You go to bed, you get up the next day, and something completely different is going on. And it's a very exciting feeling when you experience that. I'm someone that I've never been able to do the same thing for too long. Always like going for new challenges and always challenging myself. And this industry, every single part of it is like that, from the drilling and completion side all the way to the asset side. As assets get older, there are new challenges that come on to those assets. as well as wells. When wells change at different parts of their life cycles, the different challenges relating to that. So if you are, someone like me who just enjoys, new things all the time, always getting to challenge yourself, always getting to improve yourself, this is definitely a field that you want to be in. So one thing that for personal development was very important to me is meeting different people and cultures and working with people all over the world. It's something that, it opens your eyes quite a bit to see, how other people operate, how other people doing things. I think growing up in Trinidad, you think, hey, okay, this is the way that you do it. But it's quite remarkable when you meet like someone from like another part of the world, like Eastern Europe and stuff, and like your culture is like so different. Your simple behavior, simple things that you say mean completely different things, and it's very enjoyable to work with those people. You learn so much um, from other people, from how they grew up, from traveling to different parts of the world. And for regards to personal development, that's one thing that this field will offer you. You will get those opportunities to meet people from places that you never even thought of, and you'll be able to work all over using what you've learned. Um, what you've learned. So, for example, myself, I've worked in the in Trinidad. First of all, I've worked in South Texas, which is a place in my life I don't think I ever thought I would be. But I was very fortunate to get to go there. And it was actually one of my favorite places. Some of the best people I've met were located in South Texas. I got to go to Louisiana and I got to go to Mexico. I know it's really good to see, the things that you've learned being applied in other parts of the world. Is you get a real great sense of accomplishment when you see that, hey, you are able to like carry out jobs all over the world and be very competent at it. And the oil and gas industry pushes equipment to the technical limits. I mean, some of the projects we do are some of the biggest projects in the world. I think I read a article a while back, and I mean, apart from the competitive automotive industry, the aerospace industry, and the skyscraper industry, I mean, oil and gas pushes equipment all the way, and it's one of the most innovative fields uh, in the world, and it always has been. It always has been something which has pushed people to create new solutions to really demanding problems. And in this industry, you get to apply that technology to whatever special problems you have. And once again, very rewarding when you get to see, hey, you've done something that very few places in the world have done and you've been successful at it. And just my last point there, oil and gas means so much to Trinidad and Tobago. It always has. I think right now we got pretty low oil production. I don't know if it's like 60 to 70,000 barrels a day. We got decent gas, but probably not enough. And it's important that there are going to be future petroleum engineers, drilling engineers, asset engineers that are going to be able to generate new oil and new gas for this country. Because the reality is, short term and long term, everything depends on it. Our downstream industry counts on it, and that downstream industry essentially finances the majority of the country. So it is important that you understand the responsibility that you have going into the field, not just for yourself as an individual, but also understand the value that you could add to the people around you and what you're actually doing. When I joined BHP, we were exploring in the Deepwater, or we were getting ready to start exploring in Deepwater, and that was like one of my driving factors to join the company, is because it's something that is frontier development, and you could change, the future of the country. You could grow this country beyond like where it is right now. So it's very important, the responsibility that you have, not just to yourself, but also as a engineer in this field, because you're going to be servicing the country as long as you're here. So that's just some of my reasons why I think, hey, this is a field you all should stick with. You should go into it. I'm gonna just draw some of the challenges with jobs like in the next couple of slides. But one thing I didn't mention as well, I didn't want to put it on the slide, is that it's a very good paying industry if you want to stay in it in comparison to most of the other industries in Trinidad and by extension the world. I think one of the other articles I was looking at, I think it's third right now, it's third to, I think first is software development worldwide right now, is the highest compensated out of school. And secondly, I think it is investment banking. So it is very challenging, but very rewarding in many aspects. So on this slide, the most important thing I want to draw to you all, and because one of the question was, hey, how does COVID and the search for renewable energy affect the outlook for oil and gas jobs? And the reality is, no matter what, there will always be the need for oil and gas. And that means there will always be the need for oil and gas jobs. So in the short term right now, there's a limited demand given what happened with COVID last year where there was an excess, but increasing, I think from 2025 all the way to 2040, you could see on number 4 that you need to add 38 million barrels of new crude oil production to meet demand. And that's a huge amount. I mean, Trinidad's oil production is 70,000 barrels. This is worldwide, but just imagine if we contribute quite a bit more to that. So that would be some of the responsibilities of future petroleum engineers. And with regards to renewable energies, even if you go to an accelerated case, which is where most first world countries particularly are going to go all the way into renewables, they still would require 23 million barrels of oil a day to meet the demand. There's also like a very low likely case where the international Paris requirements, I think, of 2 degrees Celsius reduction in daily temperatures is required. That would be like a very low likelihood scenario, but that is the scenario where it's going to be very hard for oil and gas to be required as, so sorry, that would be the worst case with regards to having a supply of oil and gas, but it is not likely right now. And Mark, you go to the next slide. And this is just essentially the same chart just put into a diagram. So you could see in 2019, oil expenditure, the capital expenditure was around 309 billion. And as a result of COVID, it dropped to 183, and it's going to be around 194 this year. And at 2025, it should get close to what it was in 2019, which was 291 million. So I think that's the one negative right now with regards to the petroleum industry. That's going to take quite some time to recover from this COVID downturn. And just going to the last slide, which I think is very important for people coming out of school right now, is that to be a good engineer in the oil and gas field in the future, you need to have additional skills. And what are these additional skills? So there's some listed on that table to your right, and this was supplied by Deloitte in one of their outlooks. There's going to be huge demand for petroleum engineers that have these skills in analysis. Data analysis is huge right now. They're going to have the requirements for risk analysts. Those people that are good with finite element analysis, failure testing, as well as they're going to be further. I believe the 5th one was in resource planning and management with regards to additional skills. So even though I think it's going to be tough this year, I think the most important thing we could do as a petroleum engineer is to ensure that you have essential skills, additional skills to what you already have. So when jobs become available, you're able to get into those jobs and then excel in it. So that's all the slides I had. If you all have any questions? Are we open to questions?
Yvan, we could probably take questions at the end.
Okay, sure.
I guess I'm up next. Can you guys hear me? We're hearing you.
Okay, great. So my topic here, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again for attending this talk together with BHP and UTT. I am very excited and privileged to get this opportunity to talk to you about this topic. In the early part of my career, I was asked if I was willing to work offshore, to which I eagerly responded yes. But in reality, I did not know what to expect. So my hope for this presentation is that you will gain a better understanding of what it is like to work offshore. You can continue. Okay, thanks. Offshore has its ups and its downs. So when you ask what do you mean when we say offshore, working offshore can mean working and or sleeping on an oil and gas operating facility or a vessel. So in a picture seen to your left, you would see this is the new Ruby platform that was installed, and then far off in the distance is our other platforms. So you could see there is the Central Processing Platform, or CPP. You'll see that in the middle. There's our Carry platform. There's our Carry 2 and Carry 1 platform. And there's Canteen and a Repo. I'm not sure if you guys can see it on the picture, but it's all parts of our oil and gas facilities offshore. And then linked to that is our new Ruby platform that was recently installed. Okay, go to the next slide. So for us to be able to know what it is to work offshore, first want to discuss what is some of the prerequisites to be able to go offshore. To be able to go offshore, you first need to be physically fit. So you will have to take a medical, whether it's BHP or another facility. That medical is called a UCOA. It's the UK Offshore Operator Association certificate. So once you get that medical done, it's valid for a period of 2 years. You will also need to go through the TBOSE or BOSE training, which is called the Tropical Basic Offshore Safety Induction and Emergency Training. In this training, as you can see in the picture below, you have to undergo helicopter training. So basically, in the event that a helicopter ditch and goes into the water, you have to be able to evacuate the chopper. So as you can see in the picture below, this is part of the training that you will have to undergo. This training is valid for 3 years, and then you can go and do a refresher. It's very exciting training, and there's also fire and gas training as part of this. Also, you will also need to take company drug and alcohol screening, and this includes marijuana. I know marijuana is legal in Trinidad, but unfortunately in the offshore industry, they don't permit marijuana. Next slide. So to be able to go offshore now, you will have to have helicopter travel requirements. So there's baggage requirements, there's briefing, there's a mandatory safety briefing that you will take to be able to go offshore. The chopper ride to offshore is half an hour, but of course it will vary from facility to facility, but it's approximately half an hour to our main platform. Because of COVID, we now need to take PCR testing. This PCR testing, it's for me, it was particularly uncomfortable, but not painful. You have to do 2 PCR tests, and it's currently 5 days minimum quarantine in a hotel. Now, that could change based on the COVID requirements, but that's what we do now. So if you look at the picture below, you would see a chopper taking off from the National NHSL. And so it's very exciting. I know many of you are not sure if you've been on a chopper, but it's very exciting. It's very nice to be out there very early in the morning to see the dawn break. So exciting things. Go to the next slide. So the offshore hours is usually 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off if you're permanent staff. But if you're a non-permanent staff, you can do day trips or weekly trips based on these jobs, on the scope you have to execute offshore. On BHP sites, we're not permitted to fly on a Thursday, but as there's no vessel in the field, the reason why is you need to be safe at all times, and the vessel would basically be there in the event that you go overboard or fall overboard, which is not likely. There's no night flying unless there's an emergency, and flights to on-manned platforms are normally 2 weeks. That's on-manned, meaning that there is no other platform. I mean, there's no other way of getting out and in except by a chopper or boat. And the hours of work is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., which is a 12-hour shift depending on the day and the night shift workers. And 16, so you can work 16-hour shifts once approved by your supervisor. Next slide. So once now you take all that requirements and you reach offshore, you will normally land on the heli deck. So the heli deck is at the top of the platform, and there are different levels. So you'll come down some steps to the production deck, then there's the cellar deck, then there's the spider deck or the lowest level. So you'll make your way to most likely the accommodation area. Next slide. So as soon as you reach there, you will have another briefing where they will tell you about the emergency, what to do in the event there's an emergency. So there are different ways in which you will need to muster in the event there's an emergency, depending on the facility. So you'll need to make yourself aware of this. On CPP, it's in the galley or the kitchen, and the secondary muster area is in the lifeboat, which is shown below. But on GEP, it's inside the ENI or the electrical and instrumentation building, and on K2 is a different location in the cellar deck. So you need to make yourself aware of the facilities, the different levels, and where you need to be in the case of emergency, because you may evacuate using the lifeboat, but you could use a life raft to evacuate depending on which facility you are on. Next slide. So again, safety is always first. So once you're on the facility, there will be mandatory HSE induction. So they will tell you about the facility, where you need to be. You'll have daily safety meetings or toolbox talks. So like in the picture below, the guys are having a toolbox talk. They're talking about the job that they're going to execute and how they're going to be safe, what they're going to do. There are also safety stand-on or drills. All jobs must be assessed, risk assessed, and permitted, which means you have to have a permit to allow you to be able to execute a job offshore. And jobs are also evaluated to determine if it's what kind of change it is, and there are processes that you need to follow in order to install, to provide permanent or temporary installation on your facility. So this is like different meetings that guys have offshore. Yeah, next slide. So you might ask, like, so what are some of the jobs you need to do offshore? So this slide, I know it's wordy, but it's the different risks that you will have on a different kind of job. So once you're doing work, you might have a lot of noise. So you must ensure you have proper hearing protection. That's very utmost important. You could probably be doing manual handling work, which will involve lifting or lowering stuff, carrying, pushing, dragging. So you need to risk assess and make sure you know what risks associated with that so you would not be hurt. You might have simultaneous operations existing on the plant, especially if the plant has a shutdown. So that's another thing. There are no cell phones permitted in the production area. If you're working on heights, you will have fall arrest systems. If you're lifting, you'll have to ensure you have proper lift plans. If you're going to use the crane, those sorts of things, then there are confined spaces that are risk assessed, and there are processes to follow as well. So in everything that you do, it must be risk assessed, and you must ensure you know what you're doing and how you're going to do it. Next slide. So proper PPE is important. You need to wear your safety glasses, hard hat, work gloves, long sleeve protection, safety boots. And of course, if it's specific, you have specific respiratory, face protection, fall protection, and hearing protection to wear. So it may be hot, it may be breezy, it may be challenging, but that's all part of the job. So also, each job must follow a tool gating process. So right now, this is what we follow offshore to be able to get any job to be able to go offshore. I must have your proper people, know what people, identify them. You must have your parts, meaning equipment, and you must have all your paperwork ready. And then it's sent to the OIM and the installation manager, and then you'll be allowed to execute any job. Next slide. So once you do all that and you're good, there are also some fun things of working offshore. So right now, this is CPP. All these pictures are real. You have living accommodations. There's air conditioning, of course. You have a gym. BHP has a gym. We have a galley or kitchen. Of course, you need to be respectful of space and time, because like the living accommodations are shared spaces. So there are lots of food options because we have an offshore cook. If you have any food allergies, of course, they declare it to the medic, and there are amenities. So there are phone, Wi-Fi, direct TV, not a pool, but a pool table, offshore team builders, fully air-conditioned rooms, gym. It's like a hotel in the sea. There are lots of interactive activities that occur. So I mean, there's like Friday cook-off, limes. So the people are very friendly, and it's a really good place to work. Next slide. So in summary, there are some pros for working offshore. It's very exciting. It's great for career development. So there's a lot of interesting projects. On the right there, you would see that's the Ruby project with the crane lowering the platform into the sea. So you get to see and be part of really interesting, innovative projects. I got a part to be part of Ruby, Angostura Phase 3, the gas export platform. So you get to see a lot of interesting, innovative projects. I got to be part of what I saw when they use drone technology to inspect the crane. There are lots of, so they don't limit innovation and technology, which is what I love. You get lots of support from your team. You could always ask if you don't know. There's a lot of training. There will be technical training, but there's also social training, safety training, equipment related training. And of course, if for the adventure seekers, there are opportunities to spot animals like turtles, fishes, dolphins, whales. This is like one of the turtles that were recently by our platform. But of course, with every pros, there are cons. Like you're away from your family. It is longer hours, or maybe it will be compensated for it. And then there's of course the inherent risk with working in an offshore environment. That's why I talk so much about being safe and having the proper procedures and paper and parts, because you won't be able to, like, if you miss anything, you won't be able to get it easily, because it's, of course, it's an offshore environment. Everything is brought onto the platform via a standby vessel, and the crane lifts that onto the platform. So it's basically a longer process to get equipment or parts offshore. Any questions?
All right, good evening, everyone. Sorry, was there a question for Sherry? Okay. Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Varune Maharaj. First off, let me just apologize. I have a bit of a cough. So please bear with me. It's not COVID. It's more related to the haze outside. So on occasion, I may just have to stop and take a gulp of water here and there. I believe our bios went out, but we were asked to just briefly introduce ourselves. So Varune Maharaj. I've been in the industry just over 20 years. Fortunately for me, that put, the majority of my career during the boom days, as we call it, when things in the oil and gas were really on the high, and that facilitated many of the opportunities I was able to take on. So through the job, I've been able to work in different parts of the world, some places I probably would never have been if it hadn't been to the oil and gas, and certainly certainly provided some unique experiences with work as well as outside of work. So I've been working with BHP for just about 5 years now. After working outside of Trinidad for about 10 years, came back in here just as we were starting the Deepwater campaigns back in 2016. So my stuff, I'm going to talk a little bit about remote working. I'm going to go pretty quickly. I recognize you all can do your own research on the internet. A few things I'll quote, some stats, but really and truly, I'm going to leave more of it open for any questions you all may have afterwards. So, Mark, could you skip to the next one, benefits first, and then we'll come back to challenges. So, I think the easy one to see, the working from home, this whole working from home situation that we find ourselves in, most of us, not everyone, recognize that, there are lots of benefits there. I should say as well, as we're talking here, you're going to see a lot of things show up as benefits, but also show up as challenges, right? It's a bit ambiguous. It might seem a bit ambiguous as we talk through it. Hopefully it becomes clear. And the point is, if some of these things are not managed appropriately, they can become, from a easy benefit, they can start becoming a challenge. And similarly, if you manage some of the challenges well, you can actually turn them into benefits. So, life balance and just drawing boundaries and dealing with the distractions. So this is a good one for me. When we got locked down last March, March 13th, I believe it was, BHP shut down the office. We were working from home. I thought this was Christmas come early. This seemed like too good to be true. And I wondered how long it would last. And, the novelty of it was great. I didn't have to wake up as early. Hours on the job were probably the same, but, so many other hours were saved just from, my office being a few steps away from my bedroom. And immediately I saw some great benefits. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But as time went on, this is one of those things where if you don't manage it properly, it suddenly becomes a challenge. And one thing I saw happening without consciously realizing until it became a bigger problem was that I didn't draw any lines and I didn't set boundaries from between work and home. So every time I walk past my desk at any time of the evening, night, I would always just say, let me just check the email quickly. I'd jump in my chair and I'd end up spending hours behind the computer answering emails. And I told myself this was benefiting me as well, because dealing with some of this stuff in the night set me up better for the next day. And I thought I was being more efficient, and maybe I was being more efficient, or efficient is probably not the right word, but I was certainly getting more work done. But the downsides was starting to weigh on my family. It was starting to weigh on me, just not being able to get that space away. So, it's a very real thing, and the fatigue and some of the other things associated with working remote and working online so much. As time has gone, I think we're all starting to see it more and more. There's one thing I've seen is there's a fatigue associated with it that I haven't had before working in the office. A different kind of fatigue, of course. So there are things there that need to be managed. And luckily for me too, I also have a dedicated space, a dedicated office in my home where I can focus on work, and not everyone has that. Lots of people are using shared spaces, which makes that a lot more difficult as well. To cover a few of the bullets there, just in general communications and coordination challenges and networking, some of the things, one of the things that remote work has brought to the forefront is cybersecurity. Cybersecurity has become vital. Now everyone's accessing everything remotely, and companies were forced into making all of these systems. Most of the bigger organizations had the systems in place, but probably were not ready to cope with the volume and the traffic that came about as a consequence of this mass work from home situation. So it's there's a Cisco did a remote work report, future security remote work report. 85% of all the respondents indicated that cybersecurity is extremely important, or more important than before the pandemic. These respondents are all the relevant persons in the IT departments of the cross section of companies that they work with. So the real concern being brought up is how data is being accessed and how to secure it effectively. There's a security firm called an Envisium. They agree that organizations need to think more strategically about cybersecurity investments and how best to protect workers, data, and equipment. So this is not just about protecting the company's assets. When there's an attack, anything that's connected, being yourself and your personal data is also susceptible. So don't think of this as something that's only a challenge for the company. It comes back to yourself as well. So Mark, can we back up to the challenges? Yeah, sorry, I got mixed up here. Performance management, that's another one that it's a little bit different now. In an office setting, you relied a lot on positive attitudes and strong relationships to opening doors for advancements. One of the disadvantages is from working remotely. Of course, it's much more difficult to highlight your professional achievements. So remote work is going to change what performance management looks like quite considerably. Organizations will need to start focusing increasingly on the work done instead of the hours worked. That's something locally in Trinidad, a lot of the businesses are forced to do now, but certainly on their own they wouldn't. We always say that in Trinidad the culture is you need to be seen in your seat. People want to see you behind the desk, right? And they're looking for the ability to see you rather than you getting the job done or delivering the results, however you manage to do it. So it's going to turn more into instead of time-based, so it's going to be result-based, where you're going to be given tasks, you're going to just have to get it done. However you do that should be up to you. Right? Number of tools they have out there to help manage some of that, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to trust. Right, and that's something that, again, given the natural course of things, it probably would have taken a lot longer for many of the businesses to move to that. But given what's happened last year, it's a natural thing that had to happen. There was no other choice, and now we're seeing that for the most part, and I shouldn't even say for the most part, because that could be maybe not inclusive of every industry, but certainly within our industry, we're seeing that the operation runs quite well. Right. Let's move on to the benefits there now. So I talked a bit about on that work-life balance. I talked about the pros and the cons there already. There's an overwhelming preference across all the industries for some form of remote working for improved work-life balance and seemingly no negative impact to productivity. So this, I think the vast majority of people like some hybrid form of remote work. There are some people that struggle with being at home the full time, and some that struggle being. So I think someone came off mute there by accident.
Not me. Me touch nothing.
All right. So, you know, for the vast majority are looking for some form of flex work, if you want to call it that. And some of that was happening again before the pandemic, but you know, again, as stated already, the pandemic kind of pushed a lot of things through. There's a bit of a double-edged sword here we talked about already, you know, that managing that work life. But this has always been a challenge, especially in our industry, among other industries. You know, Price Waterhouse, they did a remote work survey. More than half of the employees wanted to work away from the office 3 or more days a week. So we're talking about the majority of the week. We're talking about more than 50% of the people, the employees, voting to do that. Work from home is also, you know, the extension of that is work from anywhere, right? Why does it have to be home? You know, you're no longer constrained by this uh, new way of working. You're no longer constrained by hiring talent who are only willing to live in a specific geographical area. You can start bringing on more diverse candidates. The upshot of it is ultimately happier and more productive employees. I think all of us can relate to that. You know, even if for those who are in the working industry already, those who are still in school, no doubt about it, right? How much better or happier you at a course that you are enjoying, or with a lecturer that you enjoy and respect and you know just take to the way that they teach it. You know, ultimately, that's what's going to keep you happier. You know, doing it in a way that you enjoy, right? There's a survey done by Mercer across almost 800 companies. 94% of the employers said, excuse me, this is the employers, right? Not the employees, said that productivity had remained the same, at least the same, or improved since they'd started this virtual work. Now, excuse me, I don't have the exact cross section of those companies, what industries they were, but it's still quite an overwhelming statistic, right? So these are the employers themselves. Even, you know, you would assume a few of them may have some biases against it, and they all come up with this note. You know, 94% of them see that you know things have not gotten worse, right? And 1 in 3, every 1 in 3 within that same sample expect 50% or more of their employees to continue working remotely after this entire pandemic has passed, which is a 10-fold increase compared to, you know, similar survey data before the pandemic. Right? I'm going to try and go a little faster here. You know, equitability, you know, that's one thing in the workplace. A lot of people, you know, have to deal with the politics, and you know, inevitably there's a lot of stuff in there that happens in the workplace that there are great strides being made to try and cut out, but you know, people are not going to be judged by the clothes that they wear, or the ability to verbalize in a meeting, or just simply because of you know who you sit next to, and all the politics involved in that. You know, that will hopefully start to degrade, you know, the negative impact of that, and there'll be more equity around advancement and career progression. Less commute stress. I think, you know, that's one. I don't need to say much on that. I think the majority of people on the island here can deal with that, what that was like before the pandemic compared to after. I myself, I live less than 20 minutes away from the BHP office, and depending on the time I leave, morning and afternoon, I could spend on average about 2 hours on the road, sometimes even more. And I know that's not even bad compared to, you know, a lot of people coming from South, where I'm from originally. So, you know, that's an obvious one. I don't need to say much there. More livable cities. You know, one thing that's happened is, you know, since the dawn of the industrial age, employment's been tied to a physical location, and migration was driven by job opportunities for the most part. And when cities experience a boom, they become unaffordable, heightening economic divides. So, you know, look at Manhattan, look at Silicon Valley. You know, those are ridiculous types of real estate prices there. And there's huge disparity in the wealth of those cities compared to others. So there's something called reverse urbanization going on. High cost of living in these places now, and remote working, where people are now going to smaller cities and towns where cheaper, outdoorsy, lots of destinations like that. And it's actually very good for distributing wealth across these towns and reducing cost of living in other cities and traffic congestion and tax revenue to some of the smaller locations. So bigger picture stuff there. Healthier work life. I mean, that's I've seen a personal benefit there just around blood pressure and not having to deal with the early morning and being hassled, getting the kids ready to school ahead of traffic, all that stuff. And massive cost savings for the companies. I mean, less infrastructure and facilities costs. Just think about the amount of energy it takes to run a building, a work building. That's a whole bunch of lighting, elevators, all the electronics, HVAC systems, and the actual building costs, real estate, insurances, maintenance, cleaning, painting, all that stuff. Businesses reduced OpEx is only going to be good to the client. Right. So last slide, just remote work. It is here to stay. I think we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. It's evolving every day. Forbes, their studies indicate while some companies used to offer the ability to work from home as a perk, it's become the norm, and by 2025, they estimate 70% will be working remotely. 70% of the workforce will be working remotely at least 5 days a month. The Enterprise Technology Research Survey, they indicated percentage of workers permanently working from home. This is permanently working from home, expected to double this year in 2021. And a CFO study from Gartner indicates over 2/3 plan to permanently shift employees to remote work after this pandemic. Big tech companies are paving the way, Twitter, who else? Twitter, Facebook, and there's someone else, can't remember offhand, or Square. They're all adopting policies now where there's no need to come back to the office. You can work remotely indefinitely. But it's not all consensus, right? They had a Goldman Sachs. He's very bullish that, this is not a new normal and things are going to return. So I think the overall message for me is that, some form of remote work is here to stay. And I think I think that's a fair enough statement for most people to buy into. I think it's going to vary across industries. Some industries require people to be there, service industries, of course. So it's going to be different across different industries. But I think there's going to be a lot more flexibility. And I think that's the way it should be. The ability to go in and collaborate when you need to, and the ability to work from home and maximize on conveniences and such. About 5 minutes over there. Sorry about that. I guess no questions for now. I'll hand over to Mark Siler for his piece. Take questions after. Oh, sorry, to Sherry.
Okay, hi folks. I did not introduce myself before, but if I didn't, my name is Sherry Lacki. I have 15 years experience in oil and gas industry. I joined BHP in 2011. I'm a controls and automation engineer. So this topic is about inclusion and diversity in the workplace. So this is a topic that is near and dear to me. What do we mean by inclusion and diversity? Is diversity despite your gender, your ethnicity, your race, or your sexual orientation? Why have a more inclusive and diverse workforce? Studies show that organizations that have inclusive and diverse teams deliver safety benefits, have a better culture, and are more productive than other teams. A diverse workforce where people are valued for their different perspective yield the best ideas that can drive increased efficiency and productivity. So as you see in the picture below, BHP is striving to be inclusive and diverse. These are some of my colleagues that are pledging to ensure like they pledged for International Women's Day and to be more inclusive and diverse. Next slide. So this is what BHP is doing at the moment. They are focused on gender balance. They have a target of females, 50% females by the year 2025. So also the approach to recruitment has changed. The institutions we used to provide candidates and interview panels are more diverse. For example, in the last 2 months, I was nominated to be on one of the recruitment panels for a job offshore, so that we will make the team more inclusive and diverse in making the decision of who would be selected. The challenges facing the industry are more and more jobs across the spectrum are seeing an uptick of female representation. Example, supervisors, technicians, and engineers. So as you can see in the picture, we have some of our offshore operators are in fact women, and of course in our engineering field, there are lots of women as well. Offshore facilities cater for a diverse workforce. They cater for an increase in female representation, example, dedicated restrooms. So offshore now has dedicated restroom facilities that they did not have before. We have dedicated female sleeping accommodation and laundry facilities. So you can do your own laundry offshore. You have female rooms and dedicated bathrooms, which is a big accomplishment. Next slide. So that's it for me.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Siler. I'm a drilling superintendent for our Calypso development. I live here in Trinidad. I've been with BHP since 2008, so just a little over 13 years. And I started off with Global Santa Fe, the drilling contractor, and then Transocean, worked for them for about 5 years before that. But I've been in the kind of the offshore business for most of my career, and I'm going to talk to y'all about leadership in the workplace, appropriate behaviors. It's really 3 topics. So, and then digital footprints and understanding how, digital footprints are important, and then also around commitments, how they change as you get older. So I think they're all interesting topics, and I'll share my thoughts on that with you here. So the first topic is on the on leadership in the workplace. So at BHP, we have this thing called Shadow of a Leader, which is essentially looking at different things that people say, act, and do, and how they prioritize things that essentially cast a shadow, and people observe that. So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it and how you explain things. So for instance, when you're starting off a meeting and just trying to provide context and just an understanding of why it's important that we're here talking about this, for one, and then how you deliver that message. People can tell if you're being authentic, or if you're just saying it, or if you're more negative or positive in a certain sense. So those kind of things do cast a shadow, and other people do see that shadow, and they see what those things are, and they tend to act that way. So we want to be very conscious of that, and make sure that everybody's providing a consistent message, and that we're conscious of our audience, because we're like in this forum, I'm speaking to future leaders here. So And also the second point was on how we act. So and that comes down to everybody's gonna be a little bit different here. You know, but you really need to ask yourself, what characteristics do you model, and like what do you want to show people that you are as a leader? So those are the things that you need to think about, and how you interact with people, how you communicate with them, making sure that people are all heard, and they all can share their thoughts. And then also that your actions are aligned with what you've said. So what you say, you do what you say, and people see that, and they respect that. And then for recognize, so what are the things that you recognize? So listening to problems from people, listening to colleagues, acknowledging, when people have made some really great achievements, and encouraging them, to continue on with what they're doing. So those are kind of some different examples from like some of the things that we try to recognize. And we're not always the best at it, but these are areas for that we always do want to contribute to. So, and then prioritization, where is it that you can spend the most time to add the most value to whatever it is you're doing your work, whether it's offshore planning a job, or if you're planning a meeting. We want to make sure that we prioritize the important things. And then in the end, it's just, asking for, do people feel included, valued, and heard? Really, the big thing for me here is asking for and receiving feedback, and just asking people what you can do to improve, like the shadow that you're casting, and don't be afraid of some negative feedback. And I say negative, but it should be more constructive feedback. I know sometimes not all feedback is going to be positive, but it usually would be more constructive feedback. Now, hey, there are times when there is just purely negative feedback, but those are the things that we do try to avoid. It's how you provide feedback, and how you take feedback. Sorry, this next topic here was on digital footprints. I think you all are very aware of digital footprints, so I'm not going to dwell on this one for very long. I actually had to look up the definition, and kind of came up with this trail of electronic breadcrumbs thing here. But you all know that, email, internet browsing, secure websites, that you do online banking or schooling, and then of course there's the social media aspect of it. So all of these things can have, positive or negative footprints. So, I mean, everybody's pretty mindful of that. I understand. Now, this thing on social media, I did want to kind of just give one quick example. We recently had our code of business conduct training, and that actually was one example that came up in there, where an individual, and this was just an example, I'm not sure it was actually happened, but was to take a picture and made some comments that were not welcome comments to another individual, and posted them on Instagram. So now that kind of thing is obviously is not allowed, and it's against our charter values. So we actually do have a corporate social media site. It's called the Yammer, and it's where people do share ideas, across the organization and different teams. So, but of course, everybody does need to, monitor, that, and be aware of, how they use it, so it's not being abused. And then the last bit was on, remote access and cybersecurity. Again, I'm not going to dwell on this one, but BHP does have, I think it was something like 14,000 mobile devices that all have access to, corporate data, and basically the same level of access as a laptop. So, this is a very important topic to BHP and all corporations, as a matter of fact. we consider this a material risk. And I'm sure you all have read about companies that have been hacked in these cyber attacks. So there is actually a global process for how we manage data and new technology. And then the last topic I had was on changing career. So I chose to kind of talk more about flex work in general in this one. And to start off with, just a quick example. The reason I joined the oil field was when I got out of college, I didn't want to work in an office job, and that was my choice because I was not married at the time, and I really wanted to have free time. So I went to work offshore for 3 weeks at a time, and I knew I'd have 3 weeks off to do whatever I wanted to do on my time off. So that worked for me. That worked for my lifestyle, and that was that is a type of flexible work program, and that's like what we would call a formal arrangement. So now that doesn't always work. That changed for me as I got older. Wanted to have a family. So, and a lot of people have families offshore. I just chose to. I wanted to be back on land and spend more of the days with them. So, I started working back on land. So, but again, now there's different types of these informal arrangements now that were, like flexible hours, working from home arrangements. So there's all kinds of these different types of programs. Some of them are job sharing. So there's different ways to look at this and how you can balance your career. So these last few bullet points, so unconscious bias and assumptions, really, I just had a few examples. This is something that just along the lines of flexible working, some examples of what they may be. Like people want to work less. So that would be an example of, if you want to work from home or you don't want to do some people may see that as, or perceive that as wanting to work less, or that their role wouldn't allow for it, or that if one person got a flexible arrangement, then everybody's going to have to, everybody's going to want it. So that, but those are biases, I think, that kind of prevented this whole flexible work life balance in the past. And I do think that COVID has actually gone a long way in progressing it, where these flexible arrangements are more common. So I think a lot of these biases are actually going away. And then, from inclusion to diversity perspective, leadership defines our culture, and our culture defines our performance. So if you look at flexible working, that flexible arrangements enables more diverse teams, which then drives our performance. So even from an I&D standpoint, inclusion diversity is a big part of, or flexible work is a big part of that in our teams also. Equality versus equity, not all flexible arrangements are going to work the same for everybody. So, and that's the purpose, is that everybody has, different, different needs. So, and they're all driven by your personal needs. So I think the one thing that maybe to take away from this is when you are looking at companies and careers, think about what you want, what works for yourself, and then what those different options are out there for the different companies. So, and kind of just start, be open and honest about that, and then I think everybody will be a lot better off. So, that was it. Actually, sorry I went over. I'd like to open that up for any questions for any of us.
I have a question. What is it like for a mechanical engineer to work in the oil and gas industry?
Mechanical engineers. I'm actually a chemical by background, but I think most folks in the drilling and completion teams have a mechanical background. So I think there are a lot of options.
On the panel here, Yvan and myself are both mechanical. Cherry, is your background electrical?
No, I'm electrical, but in my team there are many mechanical engineers. We have like a whole section that's responsible. They go offshore. They're not based offshore, but they go offshore from time to time and execute projects and install things. They like recently in 2018 they had installed the flare tip, which is a very exciting job. So that's So there is a role and there's a big gap. There's vacancies and stuff. So yes.
I think just to add to it, there are core mechanical engineering jobs in the oil and gas, offshore, onshore as well. But mechanical engineering as well as the other engineering disciplines, once you have that background, what engineering you did becomes less important. It really is just an indication that you have the aptitude, you have the background, and then you can, like I said, my first degree is mechanical engineering. I've never practiced mechanical engineering a day of my life. It just opened, just having an engineering degree opened the door for me. So, opportunities if you want to stay core in that discipline, but it doesn't limit you that way either.
I have a question, Brian Cabrera here. So Varune, I saw that you mentioned remote monitoring in one of your previous slides, right? To what degree would you say a drilling engineer would use remote monitoring in BHP?
So yeah, good question. We use it on all our campaigns. So on the Deepwater campaigns, we have a remote monitoring service that we use, we pay for on a day-to-day basis. It's tied in with our mud logging service provider. And on the Ruby campaign, we didn't start off using it. We thought, maybe it was a unnecessary cost, but within maybe it was about 6 weeks in, we had an event that we realized the remote monitoring would have been a help for that, and since then we've implemented it. So it's quite it's almost normal business for us now to have it, because the impact of well-controlled events occurring, because it's just added eyes on and trained eyes on the operations going on, and remote, not just remote monitoring, but remote services springing to the front more and more, where we're reducing, we aren't actively doing it yet. We're testing out a few things, maybe short steps on it, but other companies are probably further along than we are there, where the service providers are providing some of their services completely remote now, or at least reducing the number of personnel offshore and handling more of the work from onshore.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Hi, question on my end. So Varune, I know you spoke on remote working as well, right? So with respect to any internship opportunities for this year, would, if accepted, would it follow the same style as remote working, or a mixture of both?
A mixture of both. Last year we had within drilling and completions, we took on two interns for the summer, and it was certainly a mix of both. What we tried to do is establish a bit of a rotation schedule between the engineers and some of the managers to facilitate face-to-face with the interns, a bit of a one-on-one coaching, and help with their projects and stuff. So I think we had set it up 2 days a week, where if they wanted, they could come in the office. We were on a reduced number of personnel allowed in the office at the time, and they have to follow the protocols. But we set that up and made sure that someone was there for them to actually have some meaningful time with if they wanted to exercise it. It was totally up to them. But they were keen on it as well. Couple other days they were in there even when we didn't have anything scheduled. So very much so this year. I think we were only able to take on one this year, I believe, within VNC at least. But that would be the same type of arrangement. Whatever is comfortable. We would like a bit of face-to-face, and that's more for the benefit of the intern, because there's just a lot of coaching that can be given that way, but it's not a requirement.
Evangeline, we do have opportunities across, many different disciplines. In fact, Sherry does have an open vacancy for an I&E engineer, and that I imagine that's open to many different vacancies across the BHP facility. Yeah.
Okay, great. With respect to this as well, so any recommendations for students who are applying and they have to get a BHP referral as one of the requirements? Any recommendations or advice on that?
You're saying anyone applying for the internships has to have a BHP referral?
That is one of the requirements when you're applying online.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. Sherry?
No, I'm not aware of that, but I'm your referral. I could be a referral.
Yeah, I would imagine online it's not a
Gladly.
mandatory for you. I would imagine, but we could find out about that from HR and get back to you eventually.
Okay, great. Any more questions from anyone before we wrap up? I know we're a bit over time.
A question here for students, right? What advice would you have to them to stand out among other applicants when trying to enter the internship programs?
I'll give some comments, but I'll give someone else a chance to speak.
Hey, I think I know that's a really tough question. Everybody, I think everybody, is gonna, put their best foot forward, and whoever, does that and comes across as really, eager. I guess I would say, if it's something you really want to do, I think people will see that and just really try to give reasons why you really want to do that, and it's something that you're wanting to learn and gain that experience, and I think that's the most that we can look for.
I would add that everything I'm not saying is correct. I would add also, just from all the interviews I've been on, what's always stood out the most are the candidates that are genuine. That it's fairly easy to tell when you're being fed just what the candidate thinks you want to hear versus what they really feel or what they really want to do. So I don't want to say of course you want to try and give the best impression of wanting to take on the opportunity, right? But I would say don't get carried away with laying it on too thick. Then, if you understand what I mean, be genuine, be yourself. Of course, you want the opportunity because it is an opportunity, but be very real about it. If you don't really want to feature in the oil and gas, just be mindful of what you say in the interview, because again, most people on the panel have certain bit of experience already, and it's easy to tell if someone's just feeding what they think they want us to hear, and it doesn't come across well.
Okay, thanks very much.
Well, if there are no more questions this evening, I just want to share my screen real quick. Are you all seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So
Yes.
before we sign off, I'd like to present you all with these certificates of appreciation. So on behalf of the chapter, we wish to thank you, Yvan, Varune, Maharaj, Cherry, Lacki, and Mark Siler for taking the time to facilitate this session and really sharing your knowledge and experience on this very broad topic. With that, I would also like to take the time to acknowledge Ms. Sabita Mahabe, who assisted the chapter in planning this event as well. She was very accommodating. So these certificates will be emailed to you, of course. And thank you everyone for joining in today. Be sure to look out for any upcoming announcements.
Thank you for having us,
It was a
given the
pleasure.
opportunity to speak.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And so,
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
I